If you only email them 1 or 2 times a week and you're trying to solve a deliverability problem on top of that, you're moving literally 3 times slower than somebody who sends every day, right? So not only are you going to make less money because you're getting less at bats, but you're literally showing Google like, hey, this person just kind of sends every so often. Sometimes they do things right, but overall, they're just not nurturing their list.
Email deliverability is this black box. This requires constant babysitting. It requires continual maintenance, continual optimization. But there's a reason because email is quite easily your most profitable channel. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Joel Urway here, and welcome to another very special episode of the Joel Urway Show. I am super excited because I've got a very special guest here today, Troy Ericson, who's somebody who I have worked with over the years in the world of email marketing, email deliverability. And if you have any sort of email list that you manage and that you rely on for your brand, you are going to want to pay special attention to this interview because we're talking all things email deliverability and all things email marketing today because you are probably aware that your open rates may be going down or maybe very, very difficult to maintain at an established level that that is difficult to maintain. And so we are going to talk about email deliverability principles here today, and I am super excited. You're going to love this interview. Troy, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. It's always good to chat with you over the years, like you said. So it's good to be back.
Yeah, cool. So give our listeners a quick 30-second introduction about who you are and what you do, and then we'll dive into the episode.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Troy Erickson, owner of emailmarketing.com. Over the years, you may have known us as a lead paramedic or email paramedic, but we finally got the domain of our dreams. So that is our business now. We've generated over $250 million. So that's a quarter billion for our clients collectively in the past 6 years, just by running their email lists and sending SMS. And the main way that we do that is by fixing deliverability, like you said. So our primary software that we use for that is called emaildeliverability.com. We try to keep everything very simple, the easy to remember domains, and just get people amazing results. Have a lot of testimonials and a lot of support. So that's kind of how we built our reputation over the years since I was a freelancer and like a copywriter back in the day, and now we're running the email software company. So it's been a super, super fun ride, and to be able to work with a lot of amazing people along the way, such as yourself. It's been very special.
Awesome, man. Well, excited to chat here today. Now, I do want to preface one thing, and we talked about this before our call. When we talk about email marketing, we are very specifically talking about email marketing with lists that you own and lists that you've acquired. We're not talking about cold email marketing. We're not talking about cold spamming and trying to get into the inbox with cold email principles. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't work with cold lists. It's just like over the years, like the legality of it is kind of iffy. And then on top of that, like it doesn't work very well. And typically that's something that a lot of people use when they're just starting out,
Hmm.
which is great, but it's just not our focus. We want to focus on people that have like an email list. It's working to some extent, but it could be working a lot better.
Got it. So, existing audiences, existing lists that you have acquired through your own marketing and acquisition. So, just so we're clear, this is not cold email, and I want to be very clear with that up front. All right. So, as someone who has made a lot of money personally through email marketing, I know the importance of being able to get your emails delivered and getting more eyeballs to open up your emails because that all leads to more clicks and that leads to more sales, the whole nine yards. Troy, what has been happening recently in terms of, how Gmail and all of the email service providers, like how has email marketing and deliverability changed, say, over the past 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been the strictest for sure. Even since the beginning of 2024 is when Google made their big announcement that they were just going to straight up start blocking people if you didn't have DKIM set up. So to go into that a little bit, there's three main ways that you can authenticate your emails. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. It's basically like security. So SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So if you don't have all of those perfect and you send more than 5,000 emails a day, Google just said, hey, we're going to start blocking you if you don't have all that set up. So they started doing that in 2024. But then, like into 2025, they were like, well, actually, we're going to make it even harder and we're going to make our algorithms more difficult. And if more than one person out of every 1,000 marks your email as spam, that's okay. But if it goes beyond that, it's really not okay. And they kind of made their algorithm a bit more secretive and difficult and really, really hard to up your domain reputation from bad or low up to medium or high. So it's been a little bit of a crazy journey over the years, but I mean, that's how it's always been with email, right? Like in 2013, the promotions tab was introduced, and that's when a lot of people started saying email is dead. And we've proven that it's not if you can solve all these different things, because you can't do what you used to do like 10, 20 years ago when it was just free reign to email anyone. So it's definitely gotten harder over the last couple of years, especially for like affiliates. Those guys are having a really hard time. They look at a lot of things. If the email is thumbprinted, if you're sending the same copy as other people, there's a lot of different spam trigger words. If there's too much HTML in the email, there's a lot of things that can trigger it. But yeah, that's most of that has been within the last 2 years. So you have a good point.
Okay, cool. So maybe fill me in if there's someone with, maybe they've got 10,000 people on their email list or 30,000 people on their email list. Or I think last time we spoke, you said you worked with people who had as many as like 900,000 people on their email list, but they still didn't really believe email was working, or they were believing less and less, or they were just seeing like diminishing returns. What is happening with, why do people not think that email is such a powerful monetization channel?
Yeah, I mean, the bigger people, like you said, the 900,000, the millions that we've worked with, like 10X Advisor Network and Sam Ovens and some other people under NDA, like they get it, right? And most people with at least a six-figure list, like they get that it's important, but similar to somebody who's starting out, they see that it works less than it used to. So that's why they come to us in the first place. They're like, hey, what can we actually do here, if anything? So the biggest reason why people think it works less, or maybe some of you don't think it really works at all, it's just because the diminishing deliverability that we've been seeing over those last couple of years. And you can write a message, you can make it really good, you can use AI to write copy, you can use a great copywriter, but that's not good enough anymore to get the conversion. Because not only are millions of other people and marketers sending emails every single day across the world, but you're also having this issue where people just aren't checking it. They're not having a team go and look at the underlying HTML of their email. They're not having the email checked for spam trigger words. They're not having their authentication checked. They're just not, logging into Google Postmaster and seeing what their spam complaint rate is over the last 30, 60, 90 days. They're not taking a look at all the different like green checks and red X's that Google provides now, which is actually super helpful. And when you don't look at those things, or you don't have seed accounts that mimic your subscribers' inboxes, it's just really hard to tell how you're doing. And when you just see the open rates declining over time, you're like, it doesn't work anymore. But there's a lot you can do. And the nice thing is, even though you may have, millions of competitors across the globe, in your niche, in your industry, you don't have as many as you think. And if you do these things correctly, you're going to hit the primary inbox. If they're hitting promotions or spam, that's a huge leg up that you have over literally everyone else.
So it seems like, the basic foundational principles that we have to have in place now when Google rolled out their changes in 2024. So SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, right? So you already mentioned those. And once they get that in place, what else are they still missing? Right? What are the other things that they need to be doing on a regular basis to keep landing in the primary and staying out of, spam or promotion?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of people come to us and they're like, I already have that stuff set up. I'm good, right? And I'm like, maybe 5, 10 years ago, but not now. Because when you write the email, you absolutely need to make sure that when you're looking at, like, I can show you how to do it, but there's this thing in Gmail, or even in Outlook too. It's usually called Show Original or View Source. There's a button you can click and you can see all the HTML that goes into the email. And then when you're designing the email, you really have to think like, okay, what is the leanest way that I can create this email where it looks like it's being sent to a friend, right? Because when you send an email to somebody you know, you're not putting in huge pictures. You're not like formatting it in these weird ways and having like fluff on the sides and different colors and a ton of links. And I'm not saying that you can't use those things, but the way that you use them needs to look like you're sending an email to a friend rather than like, hey, I'm a business that's blasting this email out to 100,000 people. That's the biggest thing to look at. In addition to that, Google Postmaster is your best friend right now, which does take about 1 to 2 months to see results if you haven't set it up yet. But once you do set it up, Google, for the first time in their history, is actually sharing with you anything that you're doing like egregiously wrong and showing you how to fix it. So they'll literally have a red X or a green check next to everything. And again, some of those biggest things are if you have too many spam complaints, if you don't honor unsubscribes, which in some cases you do need to set up manually when somebody clicks unsubscribe on the Google generated link at the top of the email. There's a lot of different like headers and things that are in the HTML that they're just trying to notify you of, because at the end of the day, they want you to be a good sender because it makes the Gmail platform more valuable for all of their users, which makes them more money because more people use Google products. And the same thing goes for Outlook and Yahoo as well. They just kind of copy what Google does. So Google will do it first, and then the other ones will follow suite, which is what they've been doing over the last 2 years as well. But if you just pay attention to the things that show up in Google Postmaster, then you're going to be in pretty good shape.
So you mentioned the HTML of the email matters a lot, right? You said, I think that was really, really cool. You want your email to be read by Google as if you're sending it to a friend. Go into a little bit more detail about that. Is this a big issue that people have that causes them to go into promotions or into spam? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So the principle, and like keep in mind, like over the last like 6, 7 years that, I started to dabble in email marketing, everything became an experiment, right? So like everything here that we're talking about is like tested through that $250 million worth of data. And what it started off as when I was writing copy, I was like, I just don't think that people are going to respond as well in most cases if the email looks super salesy, because it sets off that like primal trigger in your brain, like, whoa, something's being sold to me here. I'm a little skeptical of this. But then I thought about that too, and I was like, what if that affected deliverability as well? And if you have, let's say, over 5 links, it used to be about 12, but now 5 is kind of the limit for the number of links you should put in the email. So when you're writing the email, instead of having, 1,000 different links and then like at the bottom having all your social media linked, it just doesn't make sense because it's hurting your deliverability, but it's also just like distracting for the reader and it looks very salesy. So those two things actually translate very well together. So just cutting down on some of that stuff. And when you have an image in the email, like, does the image help tell the story of the email? Does it help sell the product? Or is it something that you just put in there because you saw a large corporation put email or put pictures in their emails and you thought that's how you're supposed to do it because that's how they do it? And keep in mind, a lot of these corporations, there's a lot of red tape that you have to cut through to make a simple change to an email. Like when we work with corporations, it's the same thing. So like we know how difficult it can be for some people to change things because of hierarchy or just because you see other people doing it and you're like, I want to do it like them. But the more you do it like them, the more you look like a company, like a really big company, very salesy, and it just kind of sets off some like yellow or red flags to Google in that context. So it just makes a lot of sense to say like, hey, do I need this? And does it actually help the person understand my call to action? Because if it doesn't, it's hurting you not just with deliverability, but also with like how they're understanding the email. So it's just really, really important to make sure that you're trying to come across as a friend as much as possible.
So one of the things that I know you do with your company is you do help optimize the HTML of the email so it looks a lot more clean. But I also know that it's really important to like as you just started to explain, as you just went through, it's really important that the intent behind the email is right, meaning like there's I'm sure there's certain trigger words that you want to avoid in your emails to not, to pass through the spam filters. You talked about having, lower than five number link click or links in the email itself. Go with the order of priority. Like if I were to want to start to make sure that my emails are landing in the primary more and more often, like assuming we have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, assuming that's all taken care of, and I want to just write a new, I really want to just focus on getting into more inboxes. Like, what's the first thing that I should be, I should be focusing on?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So the first thing is you do want to open that Google Postmaster account. And then what you'll be able to do from there is see all the statistics as Google shows them to you as far as your domain reputation, your IP reputation, your spam complaint rate, all the green checks and red X's about what you might be doing right or wrong. So set that up first. And then after that, when you're actually writing the email, the most important thing is the address itself. So making sure that you're using a clean domain or one that you've improved through Google Postmaster. The next thing is the actual address. So if it's yourdomain.com, maybe you normally send from your name at yourdomain.com. If you've always used that one and it's had some issues and you've kind of like fixed those issues, sometimes it's best to move on to one that you've just used for like talking to clients or customers because it's been warmed up in like natural human conversations, right? Like when your support team emails somebody, they're not sending 1,000 pictures and links in that email. They're just having like one-on-one direct communication, which is exactly what you would send to a friend or a colleague. So sometimes using that address is very helpful. And then the next things to look at are your from name, because that is like the first thing that people see when they check their inbox. So therefore, Google prioritizes it the most. And sometimes that does make a big difference, not just with deliverability, but the way you come across to people, especially if you're a coach, consultant, personal brand. Like using your name a lot of times is way more personal than using a company name. But sometimes you can use both. It just depends on, what kind of company you are. Next thing would be the subject line, because that's the next thing that people see. So that's why it's next up in Google's eyes and Outlook's eyes and Yahoo's eyes, and just making sure that that's not coming across as too salesy. Then it's usually going to be number of links. I like to cap that at 5. And typically you don't want to send too many links that are not the domain that's sending the email. So if I'm sending from emailmarketing.com, and there's a bunch of links in my email that are not going to emailmarketing.com. If you have more than a few of those, it looks a little bit weird to Google. And then after that, like images, which can be compressed, by the way. And then a lot of times in your ESP, there's things that they just add to the template that don't really need to be there, which is the whole idea of like cleaning up HTML. That's where that comes from. So the more simple that you can make your template, it just helps everything. Because a lot of these ESPs, they try to build a template that's like very beautiful, but they don't pay attention to how that affects the deliverability of the email. So they're not trying to do you harm, but they're not in the business of deliverability. They're in the business of running a CRM business and getting a bunch of customers in, getting them to send emails. And a lot of times email is only like 20% of their business because they're also, figuring out like automations and text and like CRMs to close deals. And there's just so many features that they don't pay as much attention to email as they should. So you have to pay attention to all this stuff on your own. Otherwise, you're just going to get average or below average results.
When you work with a client and they sign up, or maybe you're doing an audit for one of your for a potential client, what's the number one mistake that you see in all of those audit accounts? Like, the most common mistake that you see when you start looking at their emails and noticing how much is going into promotions or spam, the whole 9 yards. Like, what's the number one mistake you see?
Yeah, I would say it matches the pecking order that I had mentioned very, very closely. So if they're just not paying attention to their domain reputation, their IP reputation, and all of the things that Postmaster is showing them, that's going to hurt them really bad, as well as how they're segmenting, right? Because some people have the fallacy that like, oh, I got these subscribers years ago, I paid for them, so therefore I should still email them. because I paid for them. And if I get rid of them, then I'm losing money, right? Well, if you keep emailing those people and you never clean your list of the bad addresses that turn into spam traps or the people that just don't pay attention anymore, because at the end of the day, people only follow you for so long. They only follow your company for so long, right? And we can all relate to that because we have interests in different things and our interests change over time. And then, some people abandon their inbox, some people pass away. Like there's 1,000 reasons why somebody would stop paying attention. So stop trying to email them and like get money out of them if they're not there. And that's only hurting your deliverability to the rest of your list who's still active and paying attention and cares about your business. So cleaning the list is very important as well. And not sending to people that haven't opened in 90 days or more is usually the benchmark. Sometimes that fluctuates a little depending on how healthy your list is, but that's a very important one as well. But then after that, it still kind of all defaults back to the pecking order that we talked about a minute ago. But those are a couple of the things that really, really stand out. And the only thing in addition to that is sending more often. And I know that some of you might think like, oh, isn't that annoying? Or like, what does that have to do with deliverability? But if you can show Google that you send often and you get good stats on a daily basis, then you're a great sender, because people that only send like one, maybe two times a week, and you're like scared that people are going to be annoyed, like they signed up for your list for a reason. And if you only email them one or two times a week and you're trying to solve a deliverability problem on top of that, you're moving literally 3 times slower than somebody who sends every day, right? Like if you send twice a week and somebody else sends 6 times a week, you only have 1/3 of the opportunities to show Google that you know what you're doing and you're fixing things and you're improving your deliverability. So not only are you going to make less money because you're getting less at bats, but you're literally showing Google like, hey, this person just kind of sends every so often. Sometimes they do things right, but overall, they're just not nurturing their list. So you really have to pay attention to all those things, and those are definitely some of the biggest mistakes we see.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack there. One of the things that I wanted to highlight because I've never actually learned the answer to this. You said that you want to clean your list because for a lot of reasons, but one of the things was you want to avoid spam traps. What is a spam trap, Troy? Like, I don't know what a spam trap is. I probably should know what a spam trap is, but like, what is it?
Sure. So a lot of times when an inbox gets abandoned for 6 months or more, the ISPs, so Yahoo, Google, Outlook, they will convert that into something called a spam trap, because they know if it's been sitting there for 6 months, the person's probably never going to come back. And if you're a marketer and you're still emailing that person, it means you haven't done any list hygiene in 6 months. So what they do is they leave that address active, but it looks like a real address, but really they're controlling it. And if you email that address, they know that you're not paying any attention to your list, so they dock you. Now, there's different tools you can use to clean the list. Some of them are better, some of them are worse. But at the end of the day, if you're scrubbing the list, that's great. You should be doing it every 6 months for this reason, because it shows the ISPs that you care and that you're taking care of your list. And some people just never do that. And they keep emailing the same people for more than 6 months, sometimes for years. And they're like, man, it seems like I'm doing everything right, but for some reason, my open rates, my click rates, my sales aren't improving right now. And little do they know that every time they send an email to a spam trap, it's resetting the healing cycle. Because once you kick them off the list and then you keep it that way for about 2 weeks, then things will start to heal. But if you never do that, you're never going to heal. So it's very much like an undercover mission that the ISPs are using to try and catch bad senders.
That's wild. That's wild. It's like a honeypot, It's like
It is.
it's like they're legitimately trying to trap you. I mean, that's probably why you call it a spam trap. But like, it's like they were a legit email at one point, and for whatever reason, it's no longer legit, and we're just gonna try and penalize those people who are, still emailing. It's like, oh, whatever. Part of me feels like email deliverability is this black box, but I mean, I think it is in a sense, but it does require. I mean, it's very clear. Like this requires constant babysitting. It requires continence maintenance, continual maintenance, continual optimization. But there's a reason because email is quite easily, easily your most profitable channel. Like once you acquire the list, like you're never paying for it again. Like you can communicate with them as often as you want. Um, so I know that there are stats out there that talks about how email marketing ROI produces like 10 times more return on investment than like any other channel. It could be even higher than that. I think it is higher than that, but it is insane. I mean, that's why guys like me, that's why I hired you. That's why I paid you. Is because like I know how important it is to to get that right. Um, why can't ESPs themselves solve this problem? Right? Don't you? Wouldn't you think that an ESP would make this top priority? Be like, hey, we want to get as much of these, as much of our clients, emails in the inbox as possible. Like, why haven't they solved this problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest with you, it's not done yet, but we are building an ESP that we're coupling
There you
with
go.
our email deliverability.com software because you're right, it's crazy that nobody has paid attention to this yet. But nonetheless, like regardless of which ESP you use, like our team handles like the consulting plus the software. It's, no stone is left unturned. But I think the main reason why bigger companies don't do it is because yes, it's an ESP, but primarily it's a CRM. And there's so many other features, especially for beginners, right? Because when you look at the customer base of any software or CRM, the biggest chunk of that is going to be people that are making between like 0 and 20K a month. And then you've got the higher end, echelons above that. So, maybe 20 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to a million a month and then beyond. And they really only pay attention to like the upper echelon of that as far as like customized, like special service where you have a dedicated rep and they legitimately care about you because your bill is so high. But at that level, those are corporations and they like to play it safe. And then they're talking to an ESP or CRM company who also likes to play it safe. And they just kind of like do the ho hum of like what worked, a few years ago. And they just, it takes forever to get through to the red tape. And when both parties are doing the same thing, there's just a big issue in that. And then they probably feel that there's a sense of liability. If they mess something up, they could screw it up for their client. And it's just a different business model. So personally, I don't get that, but I'm also not running like a whole CRM business. Like, for example, I love Go High Level, but they have their issues and they do not pay attention to email, which is one of the reasons like why we're building a new ESP. And you can still use it with Go High Level. You can, swap out the lead connector sending engine and all those sorts of things. So I think that's why they don't do it. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of things in life that just don't make sense to me, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Well, it part of the goal with why I wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you is it was to help demystify what happens on the back end of email because it is just this black box. And I know the rules change all the time, but as a solution provider yourself, this is why when you work with clients, you don't have just this one tool that you're selling. It's tool plus consulting and customization because there are those two. They have to go hand in hand because what you write on the email makes a ton of difference along with the back end of the email and optimizing the HTML. Am I getting that right? Which is, how and why you provide that consulting plus your tools and the systems that you use. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's absolutely two parts to it. It's like you've got, the software component, which gets emails out of the promotions tab into primary, but spam is much more complex than that. And plus, you need somebody monitoring this because even if you don't have a spam issue right now, there might be an algorithm update next month. And then now you're like, oh, what do I do? And if we just stuck you with the software and you don't have somebody to like guide you through the things that are changing so frequently now in email marketing and SMS marketing, like that's critical to running your business. And to your point earlier, I mean, when you sign up for a CRM, usually the price point for most users is like less than $100 or maybe a few $100, right? They don't have the budget to help you with that kind of thing either. Now, we're more expensive, but at the end of the day, we make sure the emails are hitting the inbox and you're selling, especially if you're a high ticket business, you're selling like multiple extra units every month or every week. So like there's a clear tangible path when you have a consultant in your pocket So you can get from where you are now to where your goal is revenue wise from your list. So like that's the whole thing. Like there's no software alone, whether it's ours or a CRM, that works optimally without a human who's had, 5, 6, 7 years of experience, like showing you exactly what to do when things change.
Yep. That makes a ton of sense. Ton of sense. All right. So what are some, you know, obviously your core primary promise is get more emails in the inbox, right? So after you go through and you look at all the things that you have to look at with a client account, and you audit their account and you start working together, what are the typical results that someone sees after working with you guys and implementing your systems and your consulting? Like, are they at 20%, open rate in, within the past 30 days, and then after they work with you, is it like 40 to 50%? Like, what does a typical before and after result look like?
Yeah, so typically, to keep it very cut and dry, you can add about 10 to 15 percentage points to your current open rates. Now, what does that mean? So a lot of people will come in, they'll be like, well, my open rates right now are 30%. So 10% of that is 3. So I'm going to be at 33%, right? That's not a big deal. And I'm like, no, percentage points. So if you're at 30 right now, you should shoot for a bare minimum of 40, maybe 45. Now, keep
Mm,
in mind as well, with the Apple updates that happened in 2021, where the open rates are harder to track now. A lot of people, they open their Klaviyo account and they're like, wow, look, I'm getting 60% open rates. It's like, well, no, you're not. You need to turn off Apple privacy opens, and then you're going to see where your actual open rates are. Add 10 to 15 to that, and that's roughly where you'll be. Now, when you look at click rates, which are more important because that's one more step toward a sale, you'll see an additional boost in that as well. It pretty much correlates, right? So for example, if you were at, let's say, 30% and now you're at 40%, maybe your click rate was at 1.5%, now it's at 2%. So you're getting that many more people to go to your checkout page or your calendar or, wherever it might be, whatever your call to action is that makes you the most money. You just think about that. And like even like a click rate, for example, from 1.5 to 2%. That's not just like, oh, it's a 0.5% boost. Like you're literally going up by 33% if you want to do the math,
mm,
because 1.5 to 2, you're taking a third of 1.5 and you're adding it. So like
yep.
that's how many extra people will be going and clicking the link. And then when it comes to sales, it's different for everyone because some people sell on the phone, some people sell products. Now, what we do to make it super fair and easy for everyone to see is after we get started, we let you do 10 split tests. So you can literally see the difference 10 times in a row in opens, clicks, and sales. So opens and clicks, those are very trackable and you can see them inside your ESP. For sales, if you sell a physical product like Klaviyo, for example, you can see that too. It's very easy. For businesses who book calls, you'll have to check, your CRM or wherever you track your calls and sales from, but like you will see a difference there as well. It's just that you have to do a little bit more work to see it. So um, there's someone in the coaching space that is a household name for NDA. They went from 23% to 43%. So like that one was a 20 percentage point bump. That's on a list that's going out to 900,000 people, like you mentioned earlier. So when you think about like the actual tangible number of that, when you think about 20%, right? There's 20 percentage points extra on a list of 900,000. That's almost 200,000 extra people seeing the email every single day. And
Mhm.
most people's lists are not that big, but you can, extrapolate that out for a second. Let's say you have 10,000 on your list and your open rates are going up by, let's just say 15 percentage points. Well, 15%, 10,000 is 1,500 people every single day that are going to start seeing the emails that weren't seeing them previously. And then on top of that, to add the cherry on top, you can dip back into some of those inactive subscribers. Now, like we talked about earlier, you don't want to email them every day, but you can go back to your list of inactives, send one email to them just to see who's still alive. Maybe they weren't seeing your emails because you were landing in promotions. You can usually get back like 10, 20% of those people as well. So if you have a bunch of inactives, you can revive a bunch of them and put them back on your list. So not only are you having higher opens, higher clicks, higher sales, but you're also getting a bigger email list. So it's like literally everything that you could want as a list owner handed to you on a silver platter.
That's awesome. Troy, walk me through what happens when someone applies to work with you? Like, what are the steps that you guys go through to make sure that you can make those guarantees? You can actually help someone who is looking to increase their performance with their email.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we do is we make everyone go through the application and schedule time. Reason being is we get a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I'll just sign up for this. This sounds great." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to sell something to you without knowing if it's going to help you and without you understanding the expectations for your ROI." Okay. So you have to schedule a meeting. Now, if there's certain criteria that we don't see, we'll cancel it. Okay. So if you have a super small email list that's like less than 3,000 people, let's say, we're going to cancel that and we're going to point you in the right direction for just, how to grow your list and like get to this point. Or if you, sell a really low ticket product and you have like a small to medium sized list, then there's just not a ton of upside unless you have a great backend system and you have a ton of high ticket upsells. Like if you don't have something that's like mid to high ticket and you don't have at least 5,000 subscribers, it's probably not going to work that well. And a lot of people are like antsy to get started, but we want to make sure it's a home run for everybody who signs up. Now, in addition to that, we're also just reviewing the website and making sure that, this is a product or a service that has a future. Like I said, there's a lot of affiliates out there in the world that are really, really struggling right now. And back when they started struggling, we started working with some of them and we were able to improve their stats. But at the end of the day, their business model just didn't really work out too well. And, a lot of those guys are just dropping out of the market. Some of them had like weird products that we weren't necessarily comfortable with. So we're looking at those things as well. Now, on the actual call, if your application looks good, that's where we do the testing. So we sign up for your list with one of our seed accounts, which mimics like a regular person who goes and signs up for your list. We'll get several emails into that inbox before the call even starts. And we'll be able to see, did those land in promotions? Did they land in spam? Or maybe you're all good and they landed in primary and you don't really need us. So those are the things that we're looking at on the call with you. Plus, everybody has a unique situation, right? Like you're coming to the call for a reason. So you probably have additional questions that we don't know before the call. So having the ability to ask those questions and like tell us what your goals are and just like really understand the situation. So when you're going into it, you're very, very comfortable and we both see the path together for this to make a lot of sense to you. And we work together for an entire year with people. And, a lot of people, if they fit these criteria, they ROI within like 2 to 3 weeks. And then everything else, the other 50 weeks of the year are just gravy on top.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And, when I worked with you, we saw immediate results. It was instantaneous. And so that was why I wanted to really have you come on because that was a few years ago and I know that the world of email changes. As we were talking, what kept going through the back of my mind was this is basically like, managing your email systems is kind of like, you know, maintaining your own car. It's like every 90 days, you're going to need to get an oil change. Like you're going to need to change the air filter. Like you got to do these things because things are going to get clogged up. Things are going to start to slow down. Things are going to degrade in terms of performance. So what do? You take it in the shop and just get your routine maintenance. And that is what it seems like, kind of as an analogy or a metaphor that you really need to do and maintain with your email system as well. Obviously, you clean your list. You got to make sure that you're technically sound with how you're sending emails. You got to know make sure that you monitor your reputation and your domain names, and also making sure that you use tools like what you have to help clean up the email so it's just easy to read for the actual system itself. And so I think that is why it's so valuable to have that customized solution plus the tools of what are working right now in the marketplace. And so um, this is a really fascinating conversation. So Troy, where can people go find you? What are the next steps if somebody wants to check out what it looks like to work with you?
Yeah, right now it's really easy. Just go to emailmarketing.com and you'll see a video demo. It's about 7 minutes long. Answers most of the questions, literally shows the software in action, just gives you more insights into what you're getting into and how amazing it is. It goes over, our client roster for, I think, 800 clients now. And some of the bigger ones that we're allowed to, we put on the page. So you might recognize some of them. And then you click the link to schedule the meeting that we talked about. We'll review the application, make sure it's good to go. And then after that, you'll be able to meet with our team. Everybody on our team that you speak to literally is an email expert. It's not just somebody who's on there taking orders. So that's something that we're really, really proud of. And everybody who's actually like doing the work for our team has a minimum 3 years experience at our company. So that's pretty amazing as well. But yeah, everything you could want to know is at emailmarketing.com. So I would go there.
Awesome. Troy, appreciate it, man. This was really, really helpful. I know that everyone listening right now is hopefully they learned a ton and realize that there's a lot of work that has to happen to make sure that your email stays in the primary. But hopefully you learned a couple tips and tricks here on this call, and you realize that you probably need an expert. You probably need someone who really knows what they're doing and has a finger on the pulse and has been doing this for many, many, many years. That's where Troy and his team come in. So appreciate everybody. That'll do it for the interview here today. So be sure to head over to emailmarketing.com, speak with Troy. We'll talk soon. Take care.